Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Schumann conductors. What, you say? There are great Schumann conductors? Yes, there are. Schumann is actually quite tricky because his orchestration is sometimes rather dense and very difficult to balance properly. See, Schumann was himself a lousy conductor, and he tried to make his scores foolproof by doubling woodwinds with strings as often as not, which makes them somewhat monochrome. And so you can do them the way he wrote them. It's not like you need to reorchestrate them, though it doesn't hurt if you touch it up here and there. But you need to be really careful. And so there are basically 2 kinds of Schumann conductors. There are the interventionists and what you might call the objectivists, the ones who just take him at his word and let it rip, and those who are a little bit more willing to put lipstick on the pig, as it were. Well, I mean, it's not a pig, but you know what I mean. Gussy it up, help him along the lines. And that's not unusual. Conductors do that all the time with all kinds of composers. Schumann is not special in that regard, and he's also not uniformly bad. I mean, the first 2 symphonies are lovely. The 4th is tougher in the revision than in the original, but no one wants to sacrifice the music he added in the revision because it's like great stuff in there. And the Rhenish is the most difficult. It really is, because there's just all kinds of clogged up stuff happening, especially in the outer movements, not so much the inner movements. And so, yes, he needs a little help. The piano concerto is beautifully scored. A bunch of the overtures are just fine. I mean, it's not a chronic problem. It's something that has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So I have some objectivists and some interventionists in this list, but the best of all of them, I think. First, Christoph von Dohnányi. He was one of the great objectivist conductors that ever lived. I mean, he was a fabulous musician who was very faithful to the letter of the score, but also extraordinarily musical. And when he had Vienna or the Cleveland Orchestra, I mean, he could do miracles in terms of balance and stuff like that really clarified textures, keeping things aerated and light. And that's what he does in his Schumann cycle. It's terribly underrated. Nobody ever talks about it, but it's really, really, really good. Also, David Zinman. Now, Zinman did 2 Schumann cycles, a very good one for Telarc with the Baltimore Symphony, but then his remake on Arte Nova with his, what is it, the Suisse Romande? Is it Suisse Romande or the Zurich Tonhalle in Zurich? Boy, is that a terrific, fabulous Schumann cycle. Absolutely marvelous. And it has all of the clarity of his first cycle, but an extra degree of expressive nuance and energy, and oh my gosh, it's great. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. You're going to be dazzled, I guarantee. Excuse me, I'm sniffling. I'm catching something. It's that time of the year and everybody's getting sick. Okay, George Szell. Now, he is an interventionist. Definitely an interventionist. And you'd be surprised because, Szell, you think, oh, well, he's the ultimate objectivist and fidelity to the score and all that. No! He was almost as interventionist in his Schumann's recordings as Mahler was. I mean, Mahler rescored all of them, and rewrote basically the entire 4 symphonies. Szell, no, he didn't rewrite them, but he did a lot of retouching to make woodwind parts come out more vividly, to give the horns a little more prominence. It's really kind of shocking to hear his Schumann. And his Schumann, of course, once he did that, is absolutely splendidly played, chamber-like and tremendous. So, Szell was a huge, huge Schumann fan. He loved that music. He said he didn't understand why they couldn't be as popular as Tchaikovsky's symphonies. Told you what he knew. But it was the thought that counted, right? And he did a marvelous job with it. So George Szell is definitely on the list. Next, Leonard Bernstein. He also did 2 Schumann cycles. Now, the interesting thing about Bernstein is that you would think he would be an interventionist. And in some ways he is. But he stood by the symphonies as Schumann wrote them, the original orchestrations. He didn't tinker. What he tinkered with were things like accents and tempi and it's, if you believe that Schumann was an arch romantic, then Bernstein is your guide, because he just goes crazy on the music, especially in his second Vienna cycle for Deutsche Grammophon. I mean, the playing is amazing, and you just feel the heat coming off of the grooves or the laser pits or whatever they are. I mean, it's really incredible how exciting these performances are. And when the interpretation is that committed and that intense, you don't worry about whether balances are being treated properly. And really, he's just about as good with the New York Philharmonic. He's just not as well recorded. He's a little bit less interventionist in terms of his tempo manipulations and things like that. But still, they are remarkable Schumann cycles by somebody who is totally committed to the cause. And it's worth noting also, in connection with Bernstein, that Schumann was, like Tchaikovsky, actually, one of those composers that everybody did. That is, you grew up in the first half of the 20th century with the assumption that the German Symphonic School was the greatest thing ever, and composers who did that, and that includes Russians and other people. I mean, anyone who was in that era, the Romantic era, symphonists were just things you knew how to do, and so most people did them rather well. There was a common practice, if you want to call it that, a general consensus about how the music should go and how important it was, and that's gone now. And so you don't really get a sense with a lot of these conductors doing this music that they're just comfortable with it, in the way that the conductors from the first half of the 20th century who grew up, up through about like the 1950s, were really, really comfortable playing that romantic German symphonic music. It's a very, very different world we live in right now. And then last but not least, the ultimate objectivist, well, not the ultimate, but one of the great ones, was Wolfgang Sawallisch. He was a Kapellmeister. He was a wonderful musician, but a very undemonstrative personality. And so you needed to pair him with a really, really great orchestra, which he got with the Staatskapelle Dresden. And they just did the most incredible Schumann cycle. It's exciting and it's lucid and it's full of, it just glows. It's amazing, absolutely amazing, and fabulous. And it's really astonishing, because Sawallisch was not the kind of guy who you thought would be compelling in this sort of arch romantic subjective music. But it turns out you get the right team together and oh boy, wonderful things happen. So there you have it, the 5 greatest Schumann conductors in a nutshell. I must say, I could give an honorable mention. I don't normally do honorable mentions. I like to stick to 5, but you guys just do whatever you damn well please when you put in your comments anyway. And so I might as well. I can break my own rule. Daniel Barenboim was another one who did tremendous Schumann, especially the second time around. So he's worth considering as well. And don't forget, in addition to the symphonies, there's also the Overture, Scherzo, and Finale, which is a fabulous piece, which Sawallisch gives us. So, there's lots of good Schumann out there, and some really fine Schumann conductors. There are also some really bad ones, especially the period instrument people who witlessly claim that, using period instruments makes things more clear. No, it doesn't. It demonstrably does not. You don't get more clarity. You don't get more anything. You just get metronomic tedium as often as not. So these are the guys who both do justice to what Schumann wrote and who bring a certain amount of romantic and wonderful expressivity to the music, which of course it has to have. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.